2 minutes there of the Sky story, and thanks for, I noticed I had a cameo, so I was very pleased about that. And to talk about that and much more, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Sky's Chief Executive, Dana Strong. As you all know, Dana took over at Sky in January, and while those of us who work for Sky have heard lots from Dana in her first 9 months, this is the first time she's given a public interview since being appointed Group CEO, so it's great to have you here. And I'm hoping we can cover a lot of ground today in our half-hour conversation, from the state of the UK market to the sale of Channel 4 and your plans for Sky. So thanks for joining us. Let's kick off with your first 9 months as Group Chief Exec. You landed in the UK in January in the helm at this multimedia business, multi-billion pound business, should I say. It was the midst of a pandemic. We were in a lockdown, and your family was still stateside. That must have been quite a challenging backdrop for an already huge job. How did that affect you settling in those early months?
Well, I think we all have our pandemic stories, right? Everybody has had their own unique journey, and what I'm really grateful about is it didn't in any way impact the way that Sky embraced me when I arrived. So I immediately felt the power of the brand, the power of the culture of the company, the warm reception, and I think particularly because I'd been in the UK market for as many years as I had and knew Sky so well too, it just immediately felt like home regardless. And I think, you know, one of the elements about the pandemic is that we, as leaders, and you all have experienced this in the room, we've all had to adjust our leadership style, for sure. So you had to really change how you're leading through a screen instead of leading in person, and that does create nuance. And one of the nice things about that is it's given, I think, leaders from the sector there's a lot of idea exchange going on. We're all talking about how are you thinking about hybrid and how are you bringing people back to work, and it's been a way of actually bringing leaders together in many respects. And so I've felt like the last 9 months have been great.
And we're now moving also into the next phase. But before we talk more about your plans for Sky, let's just talk a bit more about you. You studied and started your career in the US. You spent 2 decades away. You were in Australia with telecoms company Austar. You were then the CEO of UPC Ireland. You then went to work in the UK with Virgin Media Liberty Global. And then you were poached by Brian Roberts for Comcast in 2018. You returned home. And now you're back here. Was it a bit of a wrench to leave the US again after just getting back there?
Actually, so what I'll divert to say, one of the hardest questions I get every day is, where are you from? I have no idea how to answer that question anymore in my life. But leaving the US, really what you focus on is where you're going to, and Sky is such an exciting opportunity. I mean, I've been following Sky for over 20 years, so even when I was in Australia, as you had mentioned, we were watching what Sky was doing at a distance and emulating them, because Sky has always had such an extraordinary combination of assets. And so when you think about the technology combined with content, and content across both original productions, sport, and news, and you couple that with the sales and marketing engine, which they are exceptional at, and the brand, you really have this really unprecedented combination of assets. And the breadth of products and services that they offer, which gives you an enormous diversity, so between pay TV, streaming, broadband, mobile services, and with the financial, I guess you would say, underpinning of Comcast as an organization and the global scale of technology that brings to bear, there are just so many strengths to the business and so many assets that you kind of run towards those opportunities. They don't feel like a wrench. They feel like a life-changing moment in the best possible way.
I've got to ask you then, so how did it happen? Did Brian just phone you up and say, hey, Dana, do you want to go and run Sky? Was there a process? Did you know immediately that you wanted to do it? What was that call like?
So it was during the pandemic, as you had mentioned, so it was a call, it wasn't an in-person meeting, and I'd gotten to know Brian very, very well over the 3 years that I was living in the States, and Brian is an incredibly gracious and warm individual, and so I think for him, he immediately knew that the the magnitude of asking with the family to move back to the UK. He was aware that that was a big ask, I guess you would say. But at its core, and we'll talk about, I suppose we'll talk about the family's reaction in a moment, but at its core, you know, he had me at hello. Like, how are you going to say no to that opportunity? It's extraordinary. It was really a matter of making sure that the family could embrace it. And what I was amazed about is the kids had actually spent more time living in the UK than in any other country. And so when we said that there was this opportunity to move back, they were delighted because they feel British. So it was like coming back home. So we had the family on board, so it was all good.
So it was all good to go. And you were back in the US for 3 years, but obviously you spent most of your career in Europe and the UK, and you were running the consumer services for Comcast Cable. How did that 3 years in the US change your perspective and tool you up, if you like, to come back and work again in the UK and Europe?
So what was amazing about that opportunity is I felt like I was in the epicenter of all of the change that was happening in our sector. So the sort of global change on content, on distribution in the creative sector, and really having a front row seat in how the sector was evolving and the industry was reshaping. And what I kind of came away with is that our industry is incredibly resilient and adaptable, and the level of innovation, the level of creativity, and really just that extraordinary resilience gave me an enormous amount of confidence actually about what the next chapters are, because despite all of the rumored, you know, demise and what you hear in the press, all of the big brands are still standing, you know, and growing. You know, we're innovating for customers. Big brands are the viewership is going up. Values of these organizations are going up. You know, it's actually led to an enormous amount of growth across the sector. And so it's given me a lot of confidence that we're going to continue as leaders and as a creative force to continue to evolve actually with wherever the consumer takes us.
Dana, you talked there a lot about the resilience of the sector, but let's pick up on that a bit, because it is undergoing change. It's in flux. The DCMS has less than 5 consultations going on. We've got the live issue about the possible sale of Channel 4. My colleague Mark Kleinman had a story this morning on the government now appointing JP Morgan to advise on options for that sale. The streaming giants are coming in and gobbling up customers, and eyeballs. An Ofcom report in December expressed concerns for the future of PSBs. It feels like the market's at a critical juncture. Do you agree with that? Is it under threat?
I think what I've guessed time has sort of taught me is you don't respond necessarily to all of the rumored anxieties in the market, because you've got to look at the fundamental principles. And when I look at the UK market, I see an extraordinary PSB sector, I mean, world class. I see a very developed pay TV and broadband marketplace that's still growing, still innovating. I see an extraordinary pool of independent production companies, film production companies. The talent in front of and behind the scenes in the UK sector is really world class. And so when you look at those fundamentals, you kind of remember that actually a house is built on foundations, and the foundation is really rock solid. And the other thing that really strikes me about the UK is it's always been a leader in innovation. So I was thinking about this. When I moved to Europe, it was 2010. And the iPlayer had already launched. I mean, that is really early. It launched in a couple years before that, actually. And so the iPlayer and this sector, the BBC as an example, was out in front of this wave and actually leading, even they were advanced in the United States in some of that. And so I think if you reflect back, you know, Now TV launched in 2012, the first pay TV operator to do that, to do a streaming service. Netflix came here in 2012. This is not, it's not like things fundamentally changed in just 2020. It's, we've been adapting, we've been evolving, And I think one of the key, that's a fundamental strength of the industry. It's a fundamental strength that I watched about Sky, even from the different chairs that I sat in. And I think how Sky has responded to it is to really lean into aggregation, to kind of recognize that content is going to come. Customers enjoy PSB content, they enjoy SVOD content, they enjoy content from large paid TV content providers. Let's make it easy for them. So the Q platform is all about aggregation, all about really celebrating content from our great partners like the PSBs and making it simple for our customers. And you know, the response from customers is higher satisfaction, greater loyalty, and growth. I think that's, you know, you can see that the innovation is flourishing. So the industry is responding.
I mean, innovation is flourishing, but the market is changing, and the challenge of those giant global streamers is plain to see. And I picked up the Ofcom report. It's the Small Screen Big Debate report. And in it, it found that only 38% of viewing among 16 to 34-year-olds was traditional broadcast content. And I use that stat because it really lays bare the dramatic shift in consumptions from sort of oldies like me to what my kids will be doing. That is a huge challenge for broadcasters. How do you think the UK sector should evolve, and do you think it can evolve to see off these threats?
I think the UK sector needs to lean on its core strengths. I see the core strengths as being twofold, and the first is unique British storytelling, Britishness of the content, and I see one of the second core strengths is the attractiveness of the market here. And so if you think about the first one, really the unique British storytelling, unique British content, how I think about this market is the UK have been leaders in storytelling for centuries. I mean, it's not just with the advent of the video medium. Really, for centuries, leading authors, leading playwrights, they all really emanate from this amazing location. So that heritage of storytelling and how exportable storytelling is and unique British content, it's just translating into video. So you can see that with amazing successes like Killing Eve or British Bake Off, which has been a huge success globally, Bond franchise. You know, British storytelling is celebrated. I mean, if you even think about some of the biggest shows, I always laugh because of Game of Thrones, even though it was a British showrunner, an American showrunner, it feels very British, doesn't it? I mean, all of the accents, all of the, so there's something that is welcoming, there's something that the world writ large enjoys about watching British storytelling. And if we remember that that is one of our core strengths and continue to make unique British content, I think that the sector is going to continue to flourish. And I think the other element of it in terms of a wonderful place to do business, a solid market, you can see in both dimensions. You can see infrastructure-wise, this market is a really good market which to create content. You can see how many people are investing in studios here. That's a really good indication of how people want to come here to do business. So you've got Ashford, you've got Shepperton expanding, and you've got the other one that BlackRock just announced. So excuse me for forgetting the name, but massive investments. And of course, we're investing hundreds of millions into Elstree, which is 13 sound stages with 2,000 employees. You know, it's a very good sign that actually we see growth coming out of this market and out of the creative sector in the UK. And I think a lot of that is, you know, down to the fact that the talent here is very, very robust. The production companies are very robust. You know, the film and TV production companies, some of the best indies came from here, Shine Endemol, All 3 Media, you know, Fremantle. It's a very healthy market, which is why I think we at Comcast really see this as an imperative market to invest in creative content.
I wanted to ask about that because also making content costs a lot of money. And obviously Sky now has Comcast behind it with huge scale and very deep pockets. Look, Sky's already a huge media and entertainment business in its own right, but how has being part of Comcast changed or helped Sky in the past 3 years?
The first thing to focus on is that the two businesses are very, very similar. So we wake up in the morning thinking about the same things. You know, how do we surprise and delight customers? How do we increase satisfaction, new products and services, producing great content? So there's a tremendous amount of similarities, which means that immediately, culturally, value system-wise, we're very, very aligned, which makes it then really easy to tap into the synergies and to tap into the benefits. And I really see them as three kind of fundamentals. The first is that from a scale standpoint, it allows us to see trends much more quickly. So we have tens of millions of set-top boxes all over the globe. We have over 55 million customers, and it allows us to see shifts in consumer trends and to swap notes across different territories and kind of understand where the winds are blowing. The second, and more profound in some regards, is really Comcast is really a technology company. And so what we've been able to do is really partner with their thousands of software engineers and Sky's extraordinary track record of engineering, actually, and create product innovation and share product innovation across the two entities. And so there are many, many examples of that. One of them would be the voice platform, as an example. So the voice platform here has been a huge success for us. Customers don't have to, use the remote control. You can just speak into it. And voice requires billions of utterances to train it. It's one of those technologies that the more you use it, the better it gets, the more responsive it is. So having global platforms on these elements just makes the user experience all the better. And elements like the third kind of major benefit of being part of Comcast is on content, both the making of content across jurisdictions, I guess you would say, and being able to attract top talent because of the scale, but really also in the global distribution. So, the benefit for us of making a British story and being able to distribute that in the United States to our colleagues across the pond, those are some of the elements that the collaboration and the synergies between the businesses are really shining through.
I mean, it does seem like content is going to become a bigger part of Sky's business under your tenureship. I mean, on a change in Sky and a change in industry, I think everyone in this room can recall some of the skirmishes Sky has had in the past with other UK competitors over the years. It's long had a reputation, Sky, as an outsider, as an insurgent, as a hard-nosed competitor. But the digital age does seem to be changing that a bit. I mean, do you see Sky now more as a partner in the industry than a foe?
Well, even when I wasn't at Sky, I was always doing partnership negotiations with Sky. So I think Sky has a long track record, actually, of forming partnerships. I would say right now, I feel that those partnerships are in a better place than they've ever been. I mean, this is public information, so it's okay to say we've just refreshed our partnership with the three major public service broadcasters, and I feel like we're in a better position to really celebrate and hero that content than we've ever been before. We have always done business and had partnerships with a very complex, I guess you would say, array of both competitors as well as content suppliers. And it's how I'm personally wired. I mean, I think that it's a sign of a mature business in a mature industry to recognize that there's an exchange of goods that we can have where both parties benefit, and yet we can still compete to try and win customers and win eyeballs away in the open marketplace. That's just modern, mature business.
So you think collaboration is going to be...
I think it's essential.
And the way
I think it's essential. A really good example for us would be the Sky Showtime announcement that we had a couple of weeks ago. We've done this global partnership, or European partnership, I should say, with CBS Viacom, where we're putting CBS Viacom content and Paramount content together with Universal, DreamWorks, NBC, and Sky content all into one platform that we're branding Sky Showtime across continental Europe. And it's allowing us to expand to over 20 more countries that we haven't reached previously. And our view of it was we were better together. We should do this together because the brands work well together, the content works well together. It's a great indication of working as a partner in order to do better for your customers.
Okay, and I want to go on to another big issue for the industry, which I think was touched on earlier, which is diversity and equality. At the Edinburgh Festival this year, Jack Thorne was very critical of the TV industry. He said it had failed disabled people utterly and totally. And then Queer Eye star Tan France said the TV industry here was light years behind the US when it came to having black voices better represented on and off screen. Now, you've been in the US for the past 3 years. Do you agree with that critique?
I think there is no doubt that we can all do better. We have to challenge ourselves to do better. We've got to keep making progress. And I feel really passionately about it, actually. I think that creating an environment and a culture where multiple different voices, multiple different contexts, multiple different backgrounds, diverse backgrounds can be heard is one of my core jobs as a leader. Because if you don't create the right environment, you're not going to be able to retain diverse talent. And so that has to be the fundamental, ground that you're building from. And then for us inside of Sky, what we're doing is really challenging ourselves to be better and be faster. And so we've put a target of 20% for Black and ethnic minorities by 2025. That is a very bold target. We're really excited about it, making good progress. And we also recognize the importance from a disability standpoint. So there's this amazing initiative called the Valuable 500, which is trying to raise awareness with the 500 large global entities about the importance of really hearing the needs of the disabled community, or the otherly abled community. And so we've kicked off a major piece of research with E&Y to help support the Valuable 500. And we've been selected as one of the iconic organizations, partially because of all the work that we've done in making our platform really easy to use and all the innovation that we're doing in order to help that community. So we think of that as also a really important focus area and a responsibility that we've got as technology developers, actually, to make sure we're thinking about development with diversity in mind. So a lot of progress to be made ahead of us, but I'm glad we're talking about it. I have to say it's really important to talk about it.
I mean, just quickly before I go on, the other thing that occurred to me is you're the CEO of Sky. Had it been a FTSE 100 still, had it not been bought by Comcast, you would have been one of only 7 female CEOs out of the top FTSE 100 companies in this country. Does that surprise you or dismay you that there's still only 7 women running the biggest publicly listed British companies?
I think it's fair to say that it doesn't surprise me, but it is, disappointing. I think, if you think about the positives in our industry, actually, we have quite a lot of female leadership right now. So we really do. So with Carolyn McCall running ITV, Alex running Channel 4, my appointment, plus, Jane at All 3 Media. We've got a lot of studio heads, a lot of CFOs actually from the female gender. So we are making progress, but there's so much more progress that we have to make. And I just come back to the kind of fundamental belief in my core, which is companies that don't adapt and embrace diversity are not going to succeed. They're just going to fall away. And so those of us that are embracing this concept and making real change, I think we're going to flourish, and I think the others are going to struggle.
Okay, I'm being told in my ear that I'm going to run over time as ever. I've got to ask you about a very live issue, which is the possible sale of Channel 4. How attractive an asset might the channel be to a commercial operator such as Sky, for example?
I was tempted to say we're actually out of time.
Not quite.
I'm so sorry, Beth.
Not quite.
That's we just mismanaged the time there. Look, I think a couple things to say on that. Is you would expect me to say it's really a matter for government, and I think it is premature really to speculate on it at all until we get more information from government. I think that Alex and the team have done a fantastic job at Channel 4. They have built a really interesting and exciting business, and regardless of the outcome, I expect that we'll continue to be great partners together.
I mean, look, I know you don't want to comment on whether Sky's interested in Channel 4, but to zoom out, Brian Roberts has certainly spoken, because I read it in a piece the FT did when he bought Sky. He's certainly spoken of using acquisitions to build Comcast. Is that a philosophy you also subscribe to when it comes to Sky?
Brian has had a good and interesting track record, but he's very, very selective, right? If you think about, he's had 3 major acquisitions that have been transformational for the organization. And so I guess what you would say is he is quite surgical and quite refined in his taste. And so, yes, acquisitions have been important to accelerate the growth, but it's not a scattershot. It's a very surgical approach, and really have been the bedrock for some of the transformation over at Comcast.
Okay, we're nearly out of time, but before, well, I've got a couple more things to ask you. What about the next 5 years? You know, what will Sky look like by the middle of the decade?
So I've spent, obviously coming on board, that's one of the key things that we always focus on as a new leader. So if I think about just the next couple of years, the place that we're really focused on is the product pipeline. So was delighted to see when I walked in the door an extraordinary set of product innovations that are coming out, even starting later this year. So we're feeling very, very good about product and service and our ability to attract and retain new customers through innovation. Aggregation will be a continued focus for us, so really making it much easier for customers to actually find content regardless of the source through the Q aggregation platform, and constantly innovating on that. And of course, our investment in content, where we're taking, just in 2021, we actually doubled the volume of Sky Originals to 125, and we're growing that investment to about $500 million a year. So we'll become one of the largest investors and producers of British content in the country. I think longer term, so if you think about the 5-year horizon, I expect to be across all of continental Europe with the Sky brand, and you know, that really leans on the Sky Showtime partnership. I expect to have more products and services, and that we will have really established ourselves as a powerhouse of content creation.
Okay, well, I'm being told to wrap, but I'm going to ask you this before, because I always run over, and if I didn't, it wouldn't be me. So, right, okay, so this is the fun question now, which is, because what I want to know, I want to know what you're watching at the moment. What do you like watching on telly?
So I don't know if you'll be excited or depressed or scared about this, but I'm sort of obsessively watching Sky News.
That's quite frightening.
Yeah. So
okay,
thanks
to pull my socks up.
Thank you for your Keir Starmer interview last week. I thought it was very good, actually. Part of the gig, which I love, is the sports. And so I've actually been watching quite a lot of sports this weekend. I hope everybody saw Formula One. I haven't seen a crash like that in a long time. And Man City had a great game. So and Sky documentaries, actually. So I've never been a huge watcher of documentaries, always a fan, but I'm finding them, particularly music documentaries, I'm really into at the moment. I'm liking Vigil quite a lot, and so I had heard that was a good one, so congrats BBC, that was a great product. I'm sucked in, so is my family. And 000 actually was one of the highlights, Discovery of Witches, guilty pleasure, I liked.
So what would you like to steal? So you'd like to steal Vigil from the BBC, anything else?
I would. Ted Lasso just makes me happy and feel good. I also really liked Killing Eve, and I think that would have been a great one for our platform. And then one that is painful, so to speak, that we didn't do it, is Drive to Survive, because it just fits so perfectly with our brand and our love of Formula One. So I would have loved to have that one too, but you can't, you can't win them all, so to speak. But those are some great shows. It's just amazing, the volume of great content out there.
I think I'd like to be in Killing Eve, wouldn't you? In some way.
Yes, exactly.
Even if just for the outfits. They're telling me to stop now, so I'm going to have to stop. Well, look, Dana, thanks so much for your optimism for the sector, telling us about your plans for Sky, not telling us about Channel 4, but I wouldn't expect you to.
Artfully not telling you about it.
But thanks for this. That was your first public interview, so thanks for doing it.